everyone, welcome back to Upward Kids. Man, does it seem like the summer is flying by or what? Well, maybe it's because we've been focusing so closely on what we're trying to learn this summer. Do you remember what it is? Remember that focus thing? It's faith. That's right. Faith is trusting in what you can't see because of what you can see. We've been doing a lot of focusing on faith, and we're going to do some more today. To start off with, I got a game for you, kind of like a trivia game that we're going to get to play. In a moment, we're going to put a picture on the screen, and you have to say what it is. Now, you think that's probably pretty easy, but this picture is going to be blurred, and it's going to be out of focus, and you won't be able to tell what it is right away. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it and give you some clues, and maybe you can guess what it is before it becomes in focus. Ready to play? Let's give it a shot. In 1968, a scientist was trying to make a super strong adhesive, like glue. When he failed, what did his failed invention lead to? If you think you know, raise your hand. Does the picture help you? Can you see through the blur? Well, let's see if you got it right. Sticky notes! Ha! Isn't that crazy? So the scientist was trying to make the super sticky glue, but all he could come up with was this weak glue that didn't really work that great. Well, another scientist saw what he had made and figured out, hey, this works pretty good for bookmarks. I can stick it to the book and peel it off. And look, no sticky glue left over. And so the sticky note was born. Wow, that's pretty fun. Let's do another one, okay? Here comes another blurred picture that I'll tell you something about. See if you can guess what it is before it becomes back in focus. An engineer in the Navy was trying to design a meter that could measure the power on battleships. He used springs, and one of the springs fell to the ground, then kept bouncing from place to place. This led to the creation of a famous toy. You know what it is? Can you say it out loud? Here it is! It's a slinky! Wow, that's pretty neat. Trying to make something to do big, important stuff like battleship measurements. And then you get a slinky. Who knew? Hey, this is fun. Let's do one more, okay? Here comes the next blur. During World War II, an engineer was trying to create a rubber substance out of silicone. Silicone was widely available, and the government needed a lot of rubber for things like airplane tires and boots for soldiers. While the engineer was experimenting, he added boric acid to the silicone. It didn't create rubber, but instead it made a gooey mess that bounced. Any idea what this engineer accidentally created? Say it out loud if you think you know. It's in the picture. Now let's focus on that picture. Do you see the little container? Do you know what that is? It's Silly Putty. Man, that's another cool toy that was made out of something really serious. I kind of like that. Well, that was a lot of fun. Now, let's have some fun getting up on our feet and getting ready to worship. Check out this.
Sometimes the road ahead can be so rough. You are the reason why I don't give up. 'Cause even when it's hard to see, I still believe. So I'm gonna
got this! You got this! You got this! You have got this! Yay! Yeah! Now we're focused.
Hey everyone, it's Erica. You might be wondering what I'm doing talking to myself in the mirror.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Well, I decided I needed a little encouragement because it's been sort of a hard week. You see, a few days ago, my aunt was stuck at home with a broken leg. So I took some soup to her house, but then her dog peed on my shoe. And then I slipped and spilled the soup all over the place. And then the next day, I was walking home from the library and a car drove through a puddle next to me and splashed water all over me and all over my library book. Are you kidding me? Then, yesterday, I tripped over a sleeping cat and I fell into a prickly rose bush. Ow. So, it's been one of those weeks. And I'm trying to encourage myself to have a better day. But it's going to take faith. Faith is trusting in what you can't see because of what you can see. So even though I still have a few scratches from yesterday's catastrophe, I have faith that today will be better.
See? It's better already!
Today's story is all about some people who are having a bad week. Actually, several weeks. And okay, maybe they had bigger problems than spilled soup, a wet library book, and a thorny rose bush. But my week was still pretty bad. I'll see you when the storm passes. That'll make sense after the story.
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Acts, chapters 27 and 28.
Paul faced many difficult days because he taught so boldly about Jesus. He was beaten, made fun of, thrown into jail, and run out of town. At last, in Jerusalem, Paul was arrested by Roman soldiers after a mob tried to kill him.
He speaks against our law!
Get rid of that guy!
Paul paced in his prison cell. The Lord stood next to him.
Be brave. You have told people about me in Jerusalem. You must do the same in Rome.
Because a group of Jews were plotting to kill him, Paul was taken to the governor in Caesarea. From there, he was ordered to Rome to stand trial before Caesar. Then, he was handed off to a Roman commander for the sea journey.
I am Julius of the Imperial Guard. I am very imperious, but also a reasonable human being.
Glad to hear it.
Julius allowed Paul to visit with friends as they stopped at the port city of Sidon. From there, they sailed around Cyprus, transferred to a ship from Egypt, carrying grain to Italy. The ship fought against the wind for many days until they arrived in a town on the island of Crete called Fair Havens. It was already well into October, a risky time for sea travel.
Men, I can see that our trip is going to be dangerous. The ship will be lost, and our own lives will be in danger.
A reasonable concern.
The pilot and ship's owner wanted to reach a better harbor for the winter.
Pish posh. We can make it to Phoenix.
Well,
Feel that? Gentle southerly breeze. Perfection.
we leave at once.
Anchors away!
But very soon, the gentle breeze transformed. Within a short time, the wind beat against the ship with the strength of a hurricane. The pilot gave up fighting the gale.
Hoist the lifeboat! Secure ropes around the bow! Jettison the cargo!
In the midst of the chaos, the Lord sent an angel to Paul. The next morning, Paul withstood the storm to encourage the crew and passengers. 276 people.
First, not to say I told you so, but I told you so. Second, not a problem. Last night an angel from God told me, do not be afraid, Paul. You must go on trial in front of Caesar. God has shown his grace by sparing the lives of all those sailing with you. But we must run the ship onto an island.
On the 14th night of the storm, the sailors realized they were nearing land.
The water's only 90 feet deep here.
Drop the anchor!
The crew was so afraid of crashing against the rocks that they lowered the lifeboats, planning to escape and leave the passengers.
Julius, these men must stay with the ship. If they don't, you can't be saved.
A reasonable request. Cut the ropes!
The soldiers cut the ropes so the crew could not escape. Just before dawn, Paul gathered everyone on board,
Shouting above the wind.
Not a problem. None of you will lose a single hair from your head. Now, I'm asking you to eat so you can live.
Paul took bread and thanked God. He then broke the bread and ate it. Everyone was filled with hope while they had some food to eat as the gray morning dawned.
There's the beach! Lift the anchors and we'll run her aground!
But as the pilot steered desperately for shore, the ship hit a sandbar and began to break into pieces. The soldiers were planning to kill Paul and the other prisoners to keep them from swimming to freedom.
Stop! Don't hurt them! Paul must live! Everyone overboard! Swim to land or grab a piece of the wreckage!
Miraculously, everyone made it to shore, just as God had promised.
Welcome to Malta.
The people of Malta were unusually kind as they built a fire to welcome this large group of wet and stranded visitors.
I'll fetch some more firewood.
Paul tossed sticks into the fire. Then, a deadly snake slithered out and sunk his teeth into Paul's hand.
This man must be a murderer. The gods won't let him live.
Not a problem. Totally fine.
Paul simply shook the snake into the fire. When the people saw he was unharmed, they decided he was a god. Publius, a chief official, welcomed Paul and the others into his home.
Take whatever you need.
Paul discovered that Publius' father was very sick, so he prayed.
Jesus, please, heal this man.
Publius' father was made well. All the sick people on the island flocked to see Paul, and they too were healed. Paul had so much respect on Malta that when it was time to leave, the people of Malta gave him all the supplies they needed.
Bon voyage!
At long last, Paul neared Rome. The believers had heard he was on his way and traveled to meet him.
Welcome to Rome!
I thank God for you all.
In Rome, Paul was allowed to live in his own home, under guard. For 2 years, he welcomed anyone who came to see him. He told Jews and Gentiles alike the good news of Jesus, just as God promised he would.
So, a shipwreck is probably worse than tripping on a cat, but a bad week is a bad week. And the important thing to realize is that we all have problems, and we all get to choose how we react to those problems. Paul chose to trust that God was with him no matter what he was going through. You see, Paul understood that God had a bigger plan. Ever since Paul came to know Jesus as God's son, he had devoted his life to telling others about Jesus. And Paul knew that no matter what problems he faced, they were worth it if it helped him spread the good news of Jesus to the world. So Paul didn't necessarily focus on the storm, the shipwreck, and the snake bite like they were problems. Instead, he trusted that God was leading him somewhere. He trusted that God had a plan. And Paul's not the only person who can change focus like that. We can too! When we hope and trust in Jesus, it can change how we look at our problems. That's the one thing to remember today. Knowing Jesus changes the way you see your problems. When you're having one of those weeks, or months, or years, or whenever we have a problem, Sometimes the bad stuff is all we can focus on. But when you know that God has a plan and that Jesus is always with you, it can help take the focus off yourself and put your focus on Him. Whenever you're facing tough situations, remembering that God is with you can make it less hard or scary. So don't forget,
God has got this. See you next time. Bye.
Hey boys and girls, how did you like that story about Paul? That was a pretty wild story, wasn't it? And we see from the book of Acts that Paul had come up with a lot of problems, right? Today we're going to do a nice fun activity with water again we got going on here, and it's sink or swim. So this is our sea of water here, like with Paul, and we've got our ship here. Here's our little ship I'm going to put in the water here. And then we've got some cargo that we're going to take along on our trip that we've had, right? So I'm going to read a statement here, and if it has something to do with the story, you say yes, and then we'll take our item and we'll put it in here and see how many we can get before our ship sinks. Are you ready? All right, so we're going to go. The first one is, God can help good come out of difficult problems. Is that a true thing? It is, isn't it? It is. So how about we take our army men here, because if I was going to go on a trip on a cargo ship, I would want to bring people with me, wouldn't you? So let's see how many we can get before our ship sinks, or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be good. So let's see. Are you ready? All right, let's put them in. Let's count them. All right, we're only going to take 5 people with us. We'll forget that one. All right, so we've got 5 people. All right, let's do this again. So now let me read another statement. Pizza tastes great. Does that have anything to do with the story? No, but pizza does taste great. Well, maybe some of you think pizza tastes great, but not everybody. So no, that has nothing to do with our story, so we're not going to put anything in. All right, how about an angel came to encourage Paul and help him understand God's plan. Did that happen in our story today? It did. Good job. All right, so I'm going to take my next object. Flossers. I'm going to want to brush my teeth and take care of them while I'm on my trip, aren't you? Yeah, let's make sure we do that. All right, so let's see how many we can put in our ship here and see if it stays, if it sinks, or if it floats up here. And look at that. Those all stayed afloat. Taking our toothbrushes and our flossers, kids. All right, let's read the next statement. Are you ready? Okay. Snakes are creepy. Oh yes, I agree with that one. But that is not in the story, even though they are creepy. So that has nothing to do. We're not going to add anything to this. How about the next one? The people on the island of Malta were kind to Paul and his companions. Did that have something to do with the story? It did. You're right. So let's add our next thing. I'm going to add some money here. If I were to go on a trip, my cargo, I'd be wanting to take some money with me. Maybe a little bit more than a penny, but we're going to use pennies. And all right, our ship didn't sink, but I don't know if I want to be going in a ship when it's sideways like this. Would you? No, I don't think you would either, but it did hold up. Wasn't that fun? That was a lot of fun, was it? You can do this at your home too. Make sure you ask your parents first. Get yourself a container and challenge your parents or your brothers and sisters and say, how many do you think of this item? Can I put in there without the cup sinking, or if it will? That'll be a good thing. So today's bottom line reminds us that knowing Jesus changes the way that you see your problems. Let's talk about Paul for a minute. He had some wild adventures, didn't he? He did. He was a prisoner. He was shipwrecked in a dangerous storm. He was hungry. Should have took some candies with him, right? He was cold. Should have took some fuzzy blankets. And he was snake bitten. Yeah, that would not be good. He was hated, and he was alone. Those were some really big problems. But as we learned in today's story, knowing Jesus changes the way that you see your problems, and that was certainly true of Paul. He believed that God would bring something good from even his most difficult situation. He could have been discouraged, right? Could have got upset, especially when everything was going wrong, right? But instead, he chose to have faith that God was with him. He knew that God had a plan, even when it was hard, and that was going to be the best plan for his life. Through it all, God used Paul's life to help bring other people to Jesus.
This is my faith, this is my focus. all of my days. I know where my hope is. I'll live it loud, I'll shout the chorus, because I know, oh, you're always for us. And even when it's hard for me to see, I will trust in you, I will believe. And even when it's hard for me to see, I will trust in you, I will believe. And keep on looking to you for where I'm going, knowing you go there too. I'll keep on looking to you. I'll fix my eyes on you. You are my only focus. You are my only focus. You are my only focus. I fix my eyes on you. This is my faith. This is my focus. All of my days, I know where my hope is. I'll live it loud, I'll shout the chorus, because I know, oh, you're always for us. And even when it's hard for me to see, I will trust in you, I will believe. And even when it's hard for me to see, I will trust in you, I will believe. And keep on looking to you for where I'm going, knowing you go there too. I'll keep on looking to you. I'll fix my eyes on you. You are my only focus. You are my only focus. You are my only focus. I fix my eyes on you, oh yeah, oh yeah. You ready? Come on, let's go. Hands in the air, hands in the air. I know you're there, I know you're there. Anywhere, oh. Anywhere. I fix my eyes on you. Hands in the air, hands in the air. I know you're there, I know you're there. Anywhere. I fix my eyes on you. And keep on looking to you for where I'm going, knowing you go there too. I'll keep on looking to you. I'll fix my eyes on you. You are my only, you are my only focus. You are my focus. I fix my eyes on you.
It's not hard to see that Paul was super glad that he finally got to know who Jesus was, and he was able to tell other people about him. Paul understood lots about God's big story, and then when he knew Jesus finally, he knew that Jesus was the answer to the whole thing, that Jesus was the one that God had made possible for you and I to be able to have a way to have a relationship with him. Knowing Jesus changes a lot of things, especially how we see our problems. When you and I face problems, we can know that Jesus is going to be there with us, no matter what. Let's say you're going to some place that you have never been before and you don't know any of the people there, and you're a little bit worried about that. Just remember, Jesus is not going to leave you in that situation, so you can face your problems with some confidence. Or maybe you're in a situation where you're having to do something new that you've never done before and you're not so sure you're going to be any good at it. Makes you a little nervous. It does me too. Well, remember that knowing Jesus can change the way you look at your problems. Know that he's there with you, helping you right through it. It'll be fine because Jesus is with you. Next week, we're going to come back again to Upward Kids, and we're going to learn some more about faith because we've got some more summer to go. I hope you have some fun this week. I hope you have some great times also learning how to focus on faith at your house. Check out the Parent Q app, and we'll see you back here next weekend. Bye.